Right, welcome to Roadmap, Autotrader UK's product and tech podcast. Today we're going to do a one-off birthday special to celebrate Java turning 30, not to celebrate Carl turning 40. That was 2 weeks ago. And to chat through this, got two extra special guests who've been, I'd say, frog marched in under duress.
Very happy to be here.
Yeah, so we got Chris, our CTO.
CTA.
See what CTA called?
CTO.
CTO.
Normally use CTO,
Chris?
yeah.
Don't use CTA.
No, that's just made up, isn't it? Really? So don't use that.
And Carl Stoney, our technical architect.
Hi.
Okay, so 30 years. So I'm going to take us back to 1995. One of my favourite years, actually.
Glory days, yes.
Yeah, playing Manic Miner, maybe, with my mates. Or maybe it was Mario Kart at that point. But so, 95, what were you doing in 95, Chris?
95, still at uni, second year of uni. So I was 94 to 97.
Yeah, same here. Where were you at?
In Leeds, studying
Leeds.
genetics, which I've used every day since. Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And what about you, Carl?
I was 10, so I was playing Sonic the Hedgehog on the Mega
Sonic
Drive.
Nice. Yeah. So I take it then, genetics, 95. I mean, Java was definitely not on my radar. I didn't even know the internet existed, to be honest, in 95. So.
No, it was early days. It was early days for sure.
So when did you, obviously, Carl, you were 10. You might have been interested in it.
I can promise you I wasn't.
Yeah. So when did you become aware of this thing called Java?
Not until a couple of years later. So I accidentally got into software. So straight after leaving uni, worked for BT for a bit, and they had a sort of luxury of a big old intranet. So at the time, most people in the UK were still on dial-up, right?
Yeah.
Using a thing called landlines.
Yeah. Was that when you did the modem in it?
Yeah, all the funny
Made
noises.
squeaky
Exactly.
noises.
Yeah.
I remember
So
those.
basically, early internet was terrible.
Yeah.
That was it, right? So most people at home had a dial-up. So you might have had broadband at work.
Yeah.
If you were in a big corporate, you had an advantage of that. So I was using it like internet browser tech, but on a corporate internet. So I moved to Autotrader about 1998. So coincidentally, Autotrader Digital, the website, tracks the history of Java almost perfectly.
Yeah, because when did autotrade.co.uk, was that 96?
We think it's hard to remember exactly. I think the domain got registered in 96.
Right.
So all, there or thereabouts, a couple of years, all this stuff started happening.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like a hacky website. We were using something called Perl. It was a scripting language. Perl CGI. That's how you did things back then, which was like a horribly complex and slow way of building websites that wanted to be dynamic.
So that's when you joined AT. That was the
joined
sort
AT
of
as a
tech
developer
stack.
then. Java was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
For about another year. So I mean, the history, a little bit potted history of web.
Yeah.
Early web, static content, right? You write some HTML, there you go.
Yeah.
That soon ran out of steam, and people needed to deliver like dynamic content. Like, how do you make a web page look a bit more, dynamic and react to users? Really crappy ways of doing that in the early days. Like I say, we were using Perl. That was quite a common way of doing it. Java came along, and it had this promise of Java applets were a key feature. That was these are long gone now, right?
Yeah.
They're deprecated and then removed completely. But they were an attempt to like let you write some code and have it run on lots of different devices.
Yeah.
This is where Java kind of first emerged as a new thing. So applets were the promise of write some code that ran in a browser and have it run on all these different devices. Still like a cornerstone of Java today. The downside was it's bloody terrible, insecure, slow, and like running on this dial-up that we just talked about. It's like you have to deliver this payload of a few meg of code over a dial-up.
Yeah,
it was terrible, but it was probably one of the only ways like JavaScript hadn't really matured. It was the only way of doing dynamic.
So is this
content.
like 1990?
98, 99? Like,
it's fair to say that's better for the developers, but worse for the end user, right?
Yeah.
So it's enabling the developers to write software, dynamic software more fluently, but static content being delivered to an end user is always going to be faster, especially over really slow connections.
Yeah, because at that point, I was when we talked about it a few times, I was working with a logistics company doing software, like Cognos Powerhouse, and there was a lad called, he was called Dave Pease, and I remember he kept going on about this Java thing, And like he was like, we should do this thing in Java. Like we could do this like web page in Java. And I remember going, because I wasn't really interested. I was like, yeah, whatever. In my mind, I'm like, that's not going to take off. Obviously, about 4 years later, the company went bust.
Well, true visionary it was,
Yeah.
Dave. Then,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Mr. P.
Yeah, it was. But it was a bit where that was probably my first time I had heard of it. I was like, what is this?
It was hard work, right? Like you had the crappy dial-up connection. Internet was just kind of like exploding. The browser wars were still raging, right? So I don't remember. Everyone was using Netscape Navigator.
Oh,
back
God,
then,
yeah.
right. You'll remember.
Yeah.
And then this thing called Internet Explorer came out
Yeah.
in the early versions. Truly the most awful piece of software ever invented. Microsoft went off on one and did their own version of Java and tried to do the Microsoft thing of like proprietary extensions and all that stuff. It was a really rocky few years, I think.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder it took a bit longer for people to adopt it.
Yeah.
Because it was just crazy.
So when did it start to like explode or go like from rocket to this is like it's getting everywhere, it's really good. Was that along like in the early 20s? When did that start to?
Yeah, so it was a capable language from the start, right?
Right.
And actually, we should make the distinction. It's more than the language. You got the Java syntax. What do you write the source code in? But the real innovation was it ran on this virtual machine, this Java virtual machine, and that's the thing that got traction. And the dream was you could write this code once in Java at the time and run it on lots of different devices. And whatever the figure people.
Yeah, it wasn't even just the differences in browsers at the time. It's different devices. I think about obviously mobile phones and such weren't around at that time, Java devices, but mainframes or different servers or people's all the different types of hardware that you could run on, but you could still write it in one consistent way.
Yeah.
That's such a massive sell.
Yeah,
and that lives on today. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Oracle installer used to tell you how many devices it was on. It was like 3 billion or some made up figure, but a lot.
So then,
I'm pretty sure they just counted every device.
I'm sure. I think they probably did. Larry did it one by one by hand with a clipboard.
so when did it like you talked about different devices because obviously I didn't join AT till 2012 I think, but at that point we had a mobile team starting, an apps team starting. So like how at that point obviously the magazine was just about to finish.
Yeah.
So how at that point was Java like our number one go-to, or was it still we had multiple things out there in the tech estate? Like what did the tech estate look like in 2013?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was scrappy in the early days. I think the first decade was, like I say, using different technologies. We tried a lot of Microsoft tech, active server pages and that sort of tech, even pre.NET. We later moved to .NET a little bit. So we had a real mismatch of different tech doing different things. Java was maturing though, and we were kind of watching it going, you know what, that's quite a capable general purpose language.
So it's properly on the radar at that point.
You can do web stuff, you could write kind of batch programs, you can pretty much do anything with it. So as a general purpose language, it seemed to fill a gap of like, that's what we need.
Yeah.
You're totally right. It tracked the sort of move to digital for us as well. So we're also going, hang on, like half the business is now coming from the website. So around about 2007-ish, I'm probably hazy on the dates, we went big on like, let's double down, and we rewrote the website. We had a Autotrader 2.0, as everyone does, and rewrote the whole thing, and we chose Java as a language there.
Right. So that was a conscious choice, 2007. That's what we're going to do.
I think there's an interesting point there when you think about keeping an eye on technologies as they evolve. New technologies come and go all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a new one every couple of months, right?
Yep.
So it's you've got to be careful not to run at a technology as soon as it first comes out because it could die 2.5 years later. And if you've made a significant investment as an organization to jump ship to something and then it tanks, especially in the earlier doors of the internet where everything was just a bit more chaotic, I think it's the right thing to do is you've got something that works at the moment, something new is coming along and it looks good, but you've got to keep an eye on it for a period of time and wait for that point where you think, now makes sense. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, and it feels right for your problem space.
Yeah. So what I mean, like you said at that point on the radar, then we made the choice. What was the click to say that's what we're going to go with? Was it external influence? Was it looking at what was helping it out where? Was it features within what Java releasing? What was the decision?
We got some external help. We had ThoughtWorks in at the time. They've been great partners over the years for us. But really, that's what all the the cool people were doing. They
Yeah.
were adopting agile software, probably using Java back then. Like
Yeah.
.NET was early. Like that's found a bit more traction in recent years. But it just seemed to solve and talk to a lot of. It was grown up enough. It was an OO language,
Yeah.
strongly typed. It was like it seemed to be a grown up modern way at the time of building large connected systems. Which is perfect for what we were doing.
Even if you think about the right ones to run anywhere part.
Yeah.
So like the JVM. .NET is a great example of if you wanted to use .NET, you got to run it on Windows.
Yeah.
Right, so then you were restricted on your hosting
So they're
infrastructure.
interesting.
immediately.
They started from the opposite end. So
Did they?
.NET was always multi-language, essentially
Oh, yeah.
run
Sorry.
once. So write any, run one.
Yeah.
Java was run one,
Yeah.
write one. Really,
Run
you
on
get what I'm
any,
saying?
yeah.
They both ended up with multiple languages
Yeah.
and multiple deployment platforms. So they both ended up in a similar place, but I think they came from opposite
Angles.
directions. Sorry, cut you off.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's fine.
And so were you at that point, 2007, were you a Java dev, or were you, what was your
I
background?
resisted it for ages. So I
Did you?
got on the Microsoft route. So I was like,
I was .NET as well.
VB script in the early days, ASP, and got into .NET 1 when that's first hit. So I was a bit, and that even got muddied because Microsoft did a version of Java called J++, like it was Java
I
syntax.
don't even remember this.
Oh, it was crazy. It didn't last long.
That'd be why.
They scrapped it. C++, C Sharp came along, sorry, which wiped the floor for it. So that was a brief blip.
Yeah.
But that was a natural thing. I was like, oh, right.
So when did you go from being a resistor to, oh, you know what, I'm going to go with this?
I was probably the last person standing. So it wasn't quite
So
that
you were
bad.
forced over the line.
It wasn't quite that bad, but it was like, hang on, everything else is written in Java now.
Right.
So I hung on for a fair bit, but then, jumped ship. And actually it was like, yeah, fair enough, this is all right.
Yeah.
But it's
Brilliant.
probably late 2000s.
Right. So then if we've rewrote AT, because I remember when I joined, everyone referred to this AT2.
AT2, yeah.
And I was like, what is this AT2? But
Yeah.
so AT2, we've rewritten everything. So obviously that is still from where we are today and going back that, the difference is massive.
Yeah.
So how has Java, if we roll to today then and we look back over that 10, 12 year period, well, it's more than that, isn't it? Is how prevalent is Java in our estate now? And has there been things in it, whether like you talked about JVMs, is there been things in it that's helped us? Because we've tracked, like you said, we tracked alongside it. So how prevalent is it now within AT, within the tech estate? And also, has there been things that's really helped us move forward on?
I'd say it's about 60% of our tech estate,
Right.
60 to 70%. I think I can only speak for the last 8 or 9 years, right? Because
Yeah.
that's how long I've been here. In that time, though, I think it's fair to say that we always choose the best-in-class technology for a
Yeah.
problem space. And I think that's one thing we always do really well. So a lot of companies will be using a particular language or a framework just because that's what they've historically always done. We will always assess the situation and go, is it the right thing for us? And in the 8 years that I've been part of those processes, like we've constantly evaluated different languages, different frameworks, different tooling, different runtimes. What we've kind of landed on is Java for the vast majority of our estate.
Yeah.
And it particularly excels in back-end services. So services where we want really consistent performance, high throughput, easy to debug, we can observe it and fix problems, etc. A lot easier. We've got Node.js as like a front-end framework. And that's just because in the industry, that's where a lot of the front-end frameworks, Chris loves
For
Node.
now. We're working on it.
There's been a massive acceleration of AI and ML over the past 3 years, right? So we use Python in that space, and we have experimented with running some of our ML workloads on the JVM, but we've pivoted back to using Python for those things. And then we do have a bit of Golang for some of our more core infrastructure stuff, just because we have to, because that's what the space uses. They're our core sort of languages. Java is definitely the significant, consistent player in that
Yeah.
space. Other languages have come and gone.
Yeah. And like if I was gonna say, oh, I'm gonna pivot my career now, and I know you'll go, not a chance. But if I was coming in and say, well, I'm a .NET developer, or
Yes.
how easy is it to move, or what is the path to go? A bit like, is it like going from rugby league to rugby union? Like, there's lots of similarities, but it's very different. Like,
Yeah.
can you move from developing in one language to Java?
You
Is it-
definitely can.
I
Like,
think, I was going to say .NET to Java. I think is definitely
Yeah.
an easy one.
We're always hiring like for Java devs. Check out the career site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
always hiring at all levels. We have taken people who've come from like a .NET background or another kind of object-oriented language background. It's usually an easy transition.
Yeah.
But Java's a pretty easy language to learn, right? The basics.
Yeah.
So we've had good success with like early careers as well. Like it's a thing that you can get into, even if you've not necessarily got a structured programming background.
Right.
So you can definitely do that. It takes a lifetime to master, I would say, as with many things. But yeah, it's a pretty easy route in to a very generalized programming language.
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting segue there for AI and ML. So I think when you're going between languages, if you're an expert in, say, .NET, for example, a lot of the principles, if you were going and coding in Java, are quite similar, but you might not necessarily know the syntax or the way it's written in Java. That could slow you down historically. So a lot of people were afraid to make that jump. So, they might just stay in their particular like knowledge silo. Like I've always done .NET. So, that's what I'm going to do because I remember how to do all the things in .NET. Coding tools like AI, coding assistant tools now make it easier to go, I know what I'm trying to achieve because I've got all these years of experience. But I just don't know how to write it in Java, right? So I think it'll become even easier for people to make that jump between one language to another with the support of tools that can help them know the syntax. So I definitely, the reason I'm saying all of this is like if you weren't a Java developer, I absolutely would not be put off. I'd even be less put off these days by making that jump.
And like in a state, like we said, it was like 60%. Is that, when you said like the other cool businesses were using Java? If we looked at like peers or competitors or whatever it is, but other tech businesses, is that typical? Like, are we atypical or is it?
Yeah, I think like Fortune 500 companies are like 90% or whatever. I'm kind of making up the stats, but it's a lot.
Yeah, no, I think I saw that stat as well.
It's a lot. 90%. Like most are Java based. Like that is the sort of de facto enterprise programming language, and some of it is because it's you've got all this history of stuff that's already built. But it is still a very capable platform, a very capable architecture. So it still gets selected today.
I mean, if you did then go back to 2007, like you said, ThoughtWorks were in and we were making decisions, could you have imagined that it was still going, what, now? Like, was it, this is going to be around for a long time? Because you've talked about, like, things come and go. Like, because it does sound like 30 years is a long time. I don't know whether there's, like, could we envisage that, yes, this thing will still be in 30 years when it launched?
Thinking about the JVM in particular, not necessarily Java, we could probably touch on Kotlin in a bit. The JVM is rock solid, stable. We run it. We've run it, from servers on, in post rooms, for example, years and years and years ago, to running it on top of Kubernetes now in containers. So, like, to have a runtime that has evolved with infrastructure, which has changed so drastically, but we're still able to do it. For me, is a testament to the fact that it'll continue to evolve. As a organization, we generally prefer to use the newer versions than the older versions. So, for example, we run a lot of Java 21, which is like the latest stable version. The reason we make those decisions is because we've watched the JVM evolve to support running on Kubernetes, for example, better. Like its resource utilization is much better these days. Its awareness of running on these modern technologies is better. So I can't see it going anywhere, if I'm being completely honest. And
do you think it will, like, I know we joked about we're the same age, me and Chris, like, so like in 30 years we'll be like 79. It's a bit scary, or maybe not here at all. Can you see, like, could you really see going another 30 years, or is it?
Why not?
Why not? What's
Oh, no. I'm hoping yes.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Look, I think it's got a few more decades. Like the JVM, certainly, right? So the distinction between the thing that the code runs on and that as a concept is so embedded, not in the sense of embedded devices, but so used everywhere that I think it's got decades to go, right? It's still a great choice.
It's not even just our choices. So, for example, if you think about Autotrader search, the applications that we write as a business are predominantly written in Java, run on the JVM. But then the actual search experience is powered by a technology called Lucene. Lucene runs on the JVM. Like all the open source technologies that we use, like Elasticsearch, for example, run on it. Like there's a reason why everybody's chosen to run it. And that's not going to be a decision people pivot away from easily.
And like, in terms you talked about the stable version 21, like, are you seeing that as new releases come out, there is big technology, like advancements in like the latest version of Java or however you phrase it? Like, have you seen? Because I was reading one article saying, there was a 5-year period when it got, I don't know what version got released, but it wasn't like there wasn't a lot in that release. Are you seeing that with technology changes, like when a release comes out, there's loads of new features, or is it not like that? Because I was trying to do it in my head. Is it like with your iPhone, like your iPhone 14 is completely different from iPhone 7? Like how does it feel as it progresses?
So it's definitely an evolution. So I think code that you wrote in 1996 would still run on today's JVM. So
Seriously?
it's backwards compatible in that sense. So as long as you don't use the new features, you can always run your old code on a newer runtime.
Cool. I didn't know.
But that's really important for a mature business, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially one where you expect the software to live on more than a couple of years.
Yeah.
And especially like going back to when you said Autotrader 2.0, like that was a big monolithic piece of code that we expected to live on for a very
still
long
does.
time.
So some of that code,
bits of it still do live on.
May not be the most popular, but that's like
and that's running on the latest
on Kubernetes in the cloud.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we take some of that same code that was written back in 2007. Obviously, it's moved on and we've added features and stuff, but essentially, some of the same code, literally the same lines of code that were written back then, some of them will still be running today.
That was the first code that we ran in public cloud. I don't know if you remember, but me and a couple of others, we were like, we've got a bit of an experiment here. Like, can we run what we do on premise in public cloud? We'll choose a slice of stuff, and the stuff that we chose was this,
which is super important. So we've gone from a magazine business, start a website, run it in data centers, move it all to GCP public cloud, and like the code has lived with us and moved with us. I think that's quite a remarkable feat for any language.
And if we'd not like invested in Java earlier, and we'd gone down a different route, is there other languages, platforms that support similar, or is it? Is it?
I mean, it's not the only choice, right? People have got their own, but I think that what's important is the features that you value, and that's like consistency for us. Is really helpful to have a couple of hundred developers that all kind of know the same syntax and libraries and ways of working. Decent runtime performance.
Like
security.
One of the big things that's changed over the past, I touched on it earlier, like 10 years though, is the drive towards microservices. So we used to, typically Java comes from that background of having a big service or a handful of big monolithic services. And we've driven towards microservices where we've got 750 of those things. So having consistency of all of those services, being able to debug them all in the same sort of way, having the skills and experience across the organization to go, we've got a memory problem over here. How do we debug it? And it's the same across those 750 odd services. It's critical. And then that supporting tooling around the JVM to help us solve those problems is frankly just the most mature out of all of the languages that we currently choose to pick. Well, but this, I'm coming at it from an operational perspective, right? Because that's my background. When I see a service has run out of memory and it's zoomed, I kind of pray it's a Java service on the JVM because I have confidence that we're going to be able to get to the bottom of it in a timely fashion. Like some of the other languages that we would choose, I'd be like, oh God, I'm not sure how we're going to actually debug this now. It's a lot harder. And as a result, that massively weighs into the decision of, what language should we write a thing in?
Yeah. So we talked about like choosing best of class. So is it still like whatever 90% of Fortune 500 companies, whatever it is it still best in class?
Well, like, if you do all of that stuff, I think that you have to do that in a modern platform and modern architecture. So like if you invest in all that stuff as well, like, and you choose a language that plays nicely with all that stuff, that's why it's still a great choice, because it's great developer support, great tooling, great everything.
Realistically, we don't tie anyone's hands here, right? Like
do a bit. I try to. I try my best.
But if someone presented a reasoned perspective,
they don't present. They cheat. That's the problem. I wish they would present.
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to get across there is like people are empowered to sit there and go, based on my problem space here, I believe the right solution is Node. I'm a massive Node advocate, as you know.
Someone has to.
Like, people are empowered to make that decision, and the vast majority of people choose to go and write a Java app and run it on the JVM. And that says something. Like, they've not been forced to do that.
Yeah. No, it is.
No,
I mean, it's a bit where it's like us when they said, we should do, it's a bit like it's abstract, but the more you get into it, it is fascinating. Is there anything coming up, like when you look at, because obviously there's investment going on with Java still, with new release coming out. Is there anything in the near horizon that we're looking at that goes, that might be very useful with that feature? Or I was reading something about some quantum security. I don't know even what it meant this morning. And I was thinking, I'm not going to ask that.
I
But
think because of that backwards compatibility, there's only a certain amount of like features you can add.
yeah.
And if there is a criticism of modern Java, it's some of the features that have been kind of hacked in
Right.
are not as great as they could have been. Not to the point anyone using it day to day would really notice, but so some of the language features are additive and they're kind of there if you want to use them. So in later years, they've added more kind of functional programming type styles, but it's all on top of what you can already do with the base language.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone's holding out for a groundbreaking shift there, but that's part of the charm, right? You really don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have to, like, we've got 700 odd services.
Yeah.
Imagine if every Java upgrade, we needed to spend significant amounts of engineering effort updating those services.
I just assumed we did.
No.
I think it's because of like going back to 97 or whatever we're working on is every time there's an upgrade of the stuff we were on, it was like, it was massive. Yeah. It was like really scary. And it's like, what's going to break?
I mean, today, these days, I mean, this is a combination of a stable language and a rich platform. For an engineer to change their service from, say, Java 17 to Java 21 at Autotrader is like six lines of code change in a file, and then they push it and it's just done. That means that's because of the backwards compatibility of Java on the JVM, but then also the way in which we've enabled people to do that self-serve Java upgrade. So it's very low cost, actually, to make that jump these days. But we've had to invest in the tooling to get to that point because there's no, like, we're not driving Autotrader forward if we're all just frantically doing Java upgrades all the time, right? So we want to free up people's time to be working on business problems.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the reasons we choose it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a couple of people who'll give me some stick now for digging at Python, but what I see with Python every time they do a version upgrade is they then have to spend significant amount of time getting their applications running on the latest version of Python. So we actually just released a new version of Python the other day because it runs better on ARM infrastructure, which is one of the initiatives that we've got at the moment. But we've kind of paused on it for the time being because there's significant amounts of effort involved in getting even a single application moved forward. It's just not been the case in the Java and the JVM space.
And that will just hold you up then. Teams will get stuck, they won't do it, and then you just...
So and the balancing priorities, aren't they? They're going, I could do this Python upgrade, or I could do this business feature.
And so what is it, when you said 60%, what of the tech estate, what's the other 40% made up of?
Node.js predominantly for front-end stuff.
Right.
There is some back-end server stuff as well. Python is your AI and ML, and it's just a product of the past 3 or 4 years because that space has really taken off. I think on GitHub, Python has just overtaken Java as like the second place language. JavaScript still being
I was Googling this morning like the different popularity and like trends, and it had gone like that. In terms of Python.
But that's not a product of the fact that it's a fantastic language with an awesome runtime. It's a product of the fact that the AI and ML space is predominantly Python, and now it's become so popular that everybody's having to frantically go and like write a bit of Python and learn Python, and then they're trying to think about, okay, well, how do we run it at scale?
Some of those indexes are based on how much people search for terms on Google and other search engines.
It's probably me. I've for the last 2 days, like when he said we're going to do this, I'm like Google.
I mean, you could argue there, like perhaps it's breaking so much that people are constantly searching.
Exactly. So
whereas Java's pretty stable.
As a guide, it's a useful data point. But at one point Java was top of that list. Now it's probably 4 or something after Python. C++, C#. Oh no, not even C#. C probably. C# way down.
Well, that's one of my quiz questions. I had some
quiz questions at the end.
Really?
A quiz.
Well, I was going to do a
quiz.
quiz.
You could have answered that straight away.
I know we could have. Like, quiz question number 1. No, I'm going to go. I'll come to that in a minute. So if you were going to like say you met another CTO, I think we were doing something with travel counsellors when we met their guys. And I don't know what their tech estate is, but if you were going to say this is the reason why 60% of our estate runs on Java, what would your like argument be? I know you talked about consistency.
I keep going back to that. I'm very consistent with my consistency. You see what I did there?
I mean,
there's a constant
especially
theme,
with the blue.
Right. Look, it's just really helpful once you've got something that's stable and it works. Like, you've got to have a real good reason to make a big jump. So unless that capability gap is so much greater that it's worth it, I mean, you should invest in what you've got. And because really, I mean, as much as we love tech and messing around with things at low level, like, it doesn't really add any value in itself. So it's only when you're writing features and doing something for us for Autotrader, that's where we get
is using a different language going to unlock something that enables us to build a capability that we were otherwise unable to build. That very, very rarely happens.
Yeah.
Like the Python and ML space is an example of that, where quite simply we can't do it in Java and on the JVM, some of the stuff that we're doing. So we have to use something different. But there's so few of those things that come along. They're usually big technology shifts, such as AI and ML. So that's why, like, coding microservices and which is what we predominantly do. That's what those 700 of those 750 services are. That hasn't changed drastically, and probably isn't going to change drastically for quite some time.
Yeah. Right, I've got some quiz questions then.
Yay. All right.
Okay. They're a bit random. I was trying to make them funny.
Of course. Expect
So
nothing less.
I'm gonna go right back to, I think it's 91 when people started like designing of founding Java.
91.
That's what it said
All
on
right,
Google.
all
it
right,
said
go on.
between 91 and then it said it was
Go on, we
like
trust you.
released in 95, but version 1 is in
95,
96. But so which famous Ryan shares the surname of the founder / designer of Java?
Yeah, I know that.
Do you?
I don't.
He's Canadian.
Gosling.
Yes.
Ryan Gosling,
There we go.
yeah. So this is your Wikipedia comes up.
Completely unrelated to
Oh,
James.
it's James.
Yes.
Well, you don't know. He might
It's
be
a good
related.
question.
I'm
We're
going to
off
see if there's some sort of like,
We're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
all right.
1
good.
point.
1 point.
Well, you got the second one already because you talked about the
God, this has gone
the
to
top
pot.
4. Yeah. Okay, right. Second question.
Yes.
So obviously, Java is called Java after like coffee beans, but what was Java known as before it was known as Java?
This is way outside.
It was
my
known as
knowledge base.
Oak, and it started as Project Green.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
You have been doing some research.
I just
as
need
well.
to stress, I was playing Sonic. I was on the Mega Drive when all this was happening.
Listen,
Like,
I didn't in 95. I didn't even know the internet existed. Like I didn't know computers really existed.
Yeah.
Well, I did because I had a Spectrum 48K plus, but it was like a bit archaic.
Chris was coding in Oak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They named
because-
it after Oak because there was a tree outside. It was that well thought out. And
Oh,
then to
we've
change
read-
it,
we've read
'cause
the
it-
same article.
It got a copyright challenge. There you go. End of
wow.
Java.
There we go.
Right. Third question. So obviously we've talked about the popularity of over Fortune, whatever. But according to a random article, which I can't remember what it was, but it was a random article I read on the bus this morning. What is the estimated worldwide community of Java devs? So I'm going to give you a couple of options to choose from. Is it A, 5.4 million? Is it B, 9.4 million? Or is it C, 13.4 million? That's 13.4 million.
13.
13.
Seeing as we're celebrating Java, I'm going to go with the largest number.
Yeah, 13.
13.
It's actually 9.4.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
miserable, isn't it?
Still 9.4. It's a big
Mediocre,
number.
mediocre, that, isn't it?
I don't even know what like relative proportion of the world 9.4 is. I'll
Good
Google that
question.
later.
Good question, that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That was my questions.
Is that
Oh, is
the
that
quiz?
it?
Is that the end of the
Well,
quiz?
there was one about what's the top 4 popular language based upon the. Is it TOB?
I mean,
Index?
I've been in better quizzes, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But after like the sort of the quiz question. Okay, another one.
No, all right.
Pre Oracle acquiring
Ooh,
the thing.
litigious years. Yes, the early
Who was the founding company?
Sun.
Some microsystems.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there you go. I don't think I've got any more
Well,
quiz questions.
let's move on.
Well, I think we're actually based on Carlos's meeting that is in 3 minutes' time.
Oh, right. Okay, kicking
Yeah.
us out. All right, good. Yeah.
So, cheers for both coming along.
Cheers for having
And-
us.
No worries.
Yeah, and I've actually, and I say this every time, but I genuinely have learned a lot of stuff here. So when I get to me next job, when I'm booted out of Autotrader, I'm just going to start saying, Java.
Yeah,
the
do it.
consistency. That's why we
That's
chose
what
it.
we've done all our careers.
Yeah.
It works, yeah.
But no, thanks for taking time out. Very, very fun. And to those that tuned in, cheers for listening. And watch out for the latest episode of Roadmap coming soon. So don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification button so you never miss another episode. And I'm sure Carl and Chris will be back. And remember, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that's us done for a sunny day in Manchester. Cheers for that.
Cheers, Pete.
Cheers.